And welcome everyone. Welcome to today's evening stream. I want to start right away from saying a bit sorry. I am definitely getting sick, so I feel a little bit of a pain in my throat as I speak. So it's going to be a painful experience for me, but we haven't talked in a while. So no matter the uncomfortable conditions that I am at, I will gladly spend the next maybe 1 or 2 hours together with you. Let's start today's live stream by saying huge thanks to the people that are actually carrying a lot of weight on this channel. You know, from your experience, it definitely feels like I'm just here alone speaking on camera, doing videos, yada yada. But in reality, there's like a whole team of people that are carrying so much. It's obviously our moderating team. The moderating team is at least half of what this channel and this community is. They're helping spreading the news. They're helping organizing things. They're designing stuff. Please, at least say huge thanks to them. This is the least we can do. So please join me and give a little bit of a hand to the moderating team. They are the best. As always, this stream today is with the idea of that we're trying to do something for Ukraine. We're trying to be really helpful to get from the media environment to actual help. So our donation and fundraising campaign for this Christmas and maybe January as well, we'll see how it goes. It's an ambitious campaign. But it's a campaign to get 25 trucks to the armed forces of Ukraine. Some of their trucks will be towards also unit where my relative is located, which is really great to hear. But please join this campaign. And just for everyone obviously to know, because I got this question a couple of times in the mail recently, no, I do not see even like a penny out of these donations. The donations are not run by me. I am just promoting them and so on. I'm just promoting and vetoing campaigns and so on. The money, I can never even able to approach the money. So no, this is not something that I am doing and so on. This is all being done by the organization that are actually buying and providing the trucks to Ukrainians. And I'm finding you the best deals to make sure that we do not promote any kind of big fundraiser groups that are spending a lot of money on their administrative tasks. Instead, we're going directly to the people that are working on the ground, Ukrainians that are trying to do their best to help the Ukrainian armed forces and taking a very small cut for their operations and are actually trying to be efficient. So it's an efficient campaign. It's Ukrainians that are running it. We are trying to support Ukraine. Slava Ukraini, guys. Thank you so much for everyone that has supported it so far, and thank you so much to everyone that will. Beyond that, obvious statement that I must make, because some people also wrote it recently and stated that they don't really have the money to support Ukraine and they felt a little bit bad. I want to underscore that please do not feel bad. Every person matters. In a war that is like this, there is no small tasks. If you do not have the money, you're very welcome to always write your direct representatives. You're always welcome to spread the messages on different social medias. It's very important. The volume of our information, the pro-Ukrainian information, must be big enough for the algorithms to pick it up. Not just my content, but every pro-Ukrainian content. I've been in situations in my life where I just didn't have the money to do what I wanted to do, and not having enough disposable income is fine. Do not beat yourself up for it. But if you have a chance to support Ukraine, please do. Let's begin. So we start today's stream. Obviously, it's going to be a question and answer stream, but to be true to the topic of today's today's thumbnail, there has been first an official reports that Ukrainians have engaged with some of the North Korean forces. There have been also first videos appearing of these North Korean forces. I'm going to play them right over here. So this is the video from the drone. As you can see, there's like an icy field and a lot of the just man bodies. Well, I'm thinking it's man, but like peoples that are running through that field. So the big difference that we see from the tactics used by North Koreans compared to the Russians right away is that Russians are using them not just like a meat wave assault that they would do with Russians themselves. They're actually using them like a whole level below that, if there would be even somewhere to go from below that. Basically, what they're using them for is the same that Russia has used men from the People's Republic of Donetsk, like those proxy forces inside of Ukraine that Russia built up, all of those propaganda-ridden pro-Russian separatists that were built up by Russians. There wasn't a lot of them, but they were still there. And basically what they have been doing is they sending them forward into Ukrainian positions, taking out drone fire, taking out artillery fire, taking out discovering any kind of Ukrainian positions, while also dying in a droves. I cannot show you the other videos. Some of them are pretty gruesome, where they're just like basically bodies all over. Ukrainians are reporting that the cluster munitions are working really well with these tactics by the North Koreans. And while these attacks are obviously not very good, the efficacy of these attacks is relatively low. Now, I want to underscore the fact that the efficacy is low does not mean that they're not bringing value for the Russian forces. No, they are doing what they are supposed to do. They are exposing Ukrainian positions. They're bringing out the resources from Ukrainians, so they're still doing damage. It's just, it's not a very efficient tactics. Like, I don't know what we expected from North Koreans, but it's exactly what we expected. And I'm really glad that they didn't really learn anything. And while this is pretty bad for Ukrainians, that they're going to have to fight the invasion of another country into their state now. So now Ukraine fights two countries again, and like nothing is being done. And again, my biggest critique for nothing being done is towards Europeans now, because US is a little bit being, let's just say, self-absorbed with their political situation. But for us Europeans, it's definitely something we should be absolutely not apprehended, but upended about. We see that the North Koreans are actually invading a European state. This is ludicrous. Here's another video that I think I can show you. It also shows like how they are running through the fields, that there is like, I know not a lot of show here, but as I say, there are videos where you can see those North Koreans a little bit closer, but you can just see them in a bit more gruesome way than YouTube could allow me. But the point that I want to make is that the tactics that they're using are pretty bad. It's bringing a lot of the devastation to the North Koreans. So it's both bad news that they're starting to use them, but also good news that they're starting to use them in, let's just say, probably the least painful way to Ukrainians. Like, if we would consider how would they want them to be used, I think this is definitely, yeah, banzai attacks. Yes, banzai tactics, exactly. So that's the North Koreans, and we'll see what comes of this. Right now, there has been reports on two axes. Let me show you on the map, since we're talking about this. So there has been like kind of two reported axes where North Koreans have been utilized. They've been utilized solely in the Kursk area, but this is where they have been stationed. One area was around Pogrebki, right over here at the northern part of the Kharkiv salient by Ukrainians. And then the second one is Plekhovo. So in Plekhovo here, Russians were able to enter the settlement of Plekhovo sometime last week. They appeared certain images about their taking pictures, but then it was disputed whether or not Russians are actually in Plekhovo, or this was just like essentially like a scouting force. But now, potentially, even if Russians were able to kind of enter the settlements, it feels that they've sent in kind of North Koreans additionally to reinforce the positions. So whatever the case, that's where we're having on the ground right now. And it's very sad to see that the response to the North Korean invasion of Europe is still very pitiful. I'm very happy to say that the Europeans are getting their shit together. I'm hearing a lot of very strong words, and I'm looking at a lot of very concrete action plans that are being put together by the European allies. What I do not appreciate a little bit is we're starting to see some groupings inside of Europe. Like, for example, France wants to promote some kind of dialogue with essentially countries that could supplement Ukraine, and they want to introduce essentially Poland, Germany, France, and United Kingdom. And don't get me wrong, like it's not a bad thing that they come in. Like, the more it's being discussed, the more help is being discussed, the better. But I feel that this grouping of 4 is a little bit excluding some of the big players, right? The Nordics and the Baltics together, really big players. It's a little bit silly that they're just being excluded. Like saying it's like, well, maybe each individual country does not contribute, but at least some representation from that area, at least like as a fly on the wall, that would be really great. Beyond that, Italy has been pretty big supporter of Ukraine as well, despite the fact that they have their own internal politics. So I feel that this grouping of 4 that is being promoted by France is not really tackling all of the parties, specifically the Nordics and the Baltics. And those, I believe, could be much more stronger represented in this grouping. I know that Poland goes and Poland technically takes the hawkish stand, but I don't feel that hawkish stand is something that we even need to consider. I think this should be the default we're operating with when we're talking about Russia. The potential new leader of the Christian Democratic Union in Germany, we know Scholz doesn't really have good ratings. The polls suggest he will lose, and he will lose pretty badly, losing his position to Merz in Germany, and Merz has been pretty loud, stating that they are looking to be a little bit more hawkish to support Ukraine. This is obviously all good, all nice and good, but we need to understand that CDU are a little bit desperate to kind of get back in power, as they were deposed by the SPD, and so far, whatever Merz says, I would recommend everyone divide it at least by 2. So this is my initial dialogue. I still have points to talk about. I still have things to show, but maybe you have, guys, some questions that I would love to jump into. You know, I like talking, but I much more prefer talking with you. All right, there has been, like as always, in the Q&A YouTube way that it does. I cannot see the first couple of questions because, like, you see this ask your questions here. So even in the question tab, I still see this ask your questions here, but what to do. But what I did found recently is that I can highlight a question. So now you should be seeing in chat that question being highlighted, but obviously I don't know if it's going to be highlighted for everyone on the recording. It says, get some fisherman's friends that's throat lozenges. I'm sorry if I'm butchering this. As a professional singer, I never went anywhere without them. Yeah, probably, maybe. It's a bit late to do something right now. Lou is asking how to cope with waiting time for January 20th. I'm not sure what you want to cope with, Lou. The January 20th will be Trump's kind of entry into power. I think what's going to be most important, what I would watch out right now, I mean, as I said, like, I'm decoupling myself a little bit from the American politics, mostly because I did feel that Democratic administration would be more beneficial for Ukraine. However, it's been like up and down. There's been a lot of revelations about Joe Biden, and my sour opinion of him has soured even more as we found out more and more. Right now, Joe Biden finally supplying Ukraine with like about 500,000 of support of weapons and equipment to Ukraine every week. And my question to Joe Biden is, and everyone in US, you know, we've been fed this lies for so long, saying it's like, oh, US is doing everything that they can. And then I come out here and say like, no, you're not. No, you're not even close to doing everything that you can. And then people like Americans, shut the fuck up, guy, about talking about America. You don't have to talk about my president like this, and all of the Democrats will start defending it. And then it turns out at the end of the year, when they finally lost elections, that no, I was right. And indeed, they could get a lot more done than they were doing. The point that I'm making is, if this would be done on my maybe first or second year to help Ukraine, instead of dragging feet and drip feeding the help, then this war would not be there. Then I would be happily working at my primary job and not even consider being on YouTube and sitting here with my throat pain. Thanks, Joe. But like, a lot of bullshit has been said to us, and I have absolutely zero tolerance for bullshit. If you follow my channel, you know that. Yeah, sorry, it's a rant, but it's like, it's like, my problem is like, why do I need to rant? Like it's supposed to be said to Joe. Like, instead I look at the Democratic Party and they're like, oh my God, Joe, so good, amazing, best president. And like literally everyone else is like, no, I mean, are you sure about that though? It's like, again, not going to go into the American politics. The election season is over. Now it's your story to figure it out. Right now, I'm going to be promoting the things that are matter for Ukraine. Don't really want to delve too much into that. All right, let's go. Robin one Oudhurston, sorry if I butcher your name. Georgie, the Netherlands government told US citizens we need to take their consideration NATO will get involved in the war. Told us the rations in home just in case. Do you know something more? I think this is a general narrative. We need to understand that statements from NATO, especially if the statements are coming from the NATO Secretary General, he does not decide anything, okay? So his job is to keep NATO relevant and to keep NATO fed with money and to do kind of what he feels right. So Mark Rutte it's like, I think it's Rutte or something. I don't know. I cannot pronounce it Dutch way. I don't know how to do Dutch accent. But the point of what he's stating is to make sure that NATO is relevant, because in Europe we need increase in defense spending. We have been too complacent. We are not spending enough. So I think they want to raise the general alertness level inside of Europe to see the increase of spending on NATO. So I would kind of like understand what it means. I would not go too much into details that we need like already rations and prepare like bunkers and shelters and whatnot. No, I think it's more about kind of sending a message that we are living in a lot more turbulent times than we were before. Okay. Marino, is NAFO 69 Sniffing Brigade not efficient anymore? No. Why would you say that? They are very efficient. Like, I mean, they just finished like great campaigns with Jake. They've been doing with other YouTubers. It's just like they're very, very good. They're doing really well. And what I want to make sure is that there's a lot of other people, right? There's like hundreds of different volunteer groups that are always reaching out to me and asking me to get some help. And I just feel that it's not just about NAFO 69 Sniffing Brigade for me. It's not about helping or working with them. It's about working with all of the people that support Ukraine and introduce you to people that are working to support Ukraine. So no. This is not even anything with NAFO 69 Sniffing Brigade. They're great. They're amazing. Like Dmitry just sent me a new message. Absolutely amazing. Ukraine ADOPS that we work with, they also send me, they say the guys from the front line, they want to give us a huge thanks and give us another signed flag. So no. Big love to everyone that supports Ukraine, every support group. This is nothing about them. This is just us doing different groups. Don't worry about it. Okay, I'm going to skip this. Cornelis Zandberg, how is the second Ukrainian army going? How many brigades are ready? What do you expect? Well, I cannot say how many brigades are ready. Because that would be, even if I knew, I would not tell you. But what I've heard so far is they have been trying to keep as many brigades ready but not engaged. They have been struggling with some of the cross-organizational work, like how to make sure that these brigades operate interchangeably. There's generally like some big changes right now in the Ukrainian military, and there is a big demand for changes in the Ukrainian military. Beyond that, they've been trying to kind of not send these brigades, as I said, to the front line. And the reports are that potentially some of them will be making their way to Pokrovsk. I've also recently read about some of these new special brigades that are coming in from the European countries that have been trained and equipped. So there are these brigades. I will not tell you how many of them there are. So I would say, is that army sufficient to defeat Russians? Absolutely not. Is that military that can strike against Russians when and where they're weak? Potentially, yes. But I think it's going to be decided by the operations planning on the Ukrainian armed forces. There are certain things that Ukrainian armed forces need to reconsider on how they're approaching them before they go forward, and I'm hoping that they will. Oh, Lou is giving January 20, a new war. What can we do? I mean, nothing. The elections have passed. So Donald Trump is coming in. As I said, like the biggest activity that we should follow right now is who will be his cabinet members. Specifically, who will be the cabinet members for the contact with Ukraine. Right now, there are multiple people that came in with a lot of different agendas. Some of are tolerable, like General Keith Kellogg. Like, I think some of his positions are okay. His plan is I'll explain what his position, because I explained this on one of the interviews and you might not seen it. Basically, with General Keith Kellogg, his plan is let's get to Ukraine and Russia. Let's talk about how Ukraine and Russia can talk about essentially some kind of ceasefire for this war. And we're going to threaten both Russia and Ukraine that we're going to either increase support weapons for Ukraine to threaten Russia, or we're going to threaten that we're not going to supply weapons to put pressure on Ukraine. I don't want to go into the moral and ethical parts of this plan. It's absolutely atrocious, but this is where we are, so that's where we're running with. The problem with this plan, as I see it, is that it expects for it kind of to work, to be some kind of ceasefire. It expects that Putin will negotiate in oh my god, the words escape me. Oh my god, in fairness, like that he would negotiate in good faith, that Putin will negotiate this plan in good faith. However, from everything that we've seen so far, it doesn't seem that it's going to be the case. Putin has rejected any kind of off-ramp that has been offered to him up to this point. Every single off-ramp. He has said no to a lot of very influential people and so on. Obviously, Trump was his bet, but we'll see how it will go. So what I feel is that Putin will, instead of negotiating in good faith, he will just prolong and he will play this game of, yes, we totally want to talk, but they will actually not negotiate in good faith. They will try to demand for Ukraine to give up certain territories, which Ukraine will never do. They will start making some kind of negotiations. And I feel that there is significant enough pressure from the Europe, because it feels in Europe the general message is we need to support Ukraine until Ukraine wins, is that feels that they want your war to end, but war needs to end at least in some kind of a good faith that Ukraine will accept. If Ukraine does not accept, then Europe will kind of not back it up. So I feel that it's going to be exposed after, for example, half a year of negotiations, that Putin has not been negotiating in good faith, and he's just been dragging time to try to win some kind of favor, to see less weapons being delivered to Ukraine. And I feel that will create a strong position for General Keith Kellogg to demand more support for Ukraine. Now, this is not given. Why? Because there's a lot of opinionated voices in the Trump's cabinet. Like his recent interview with the potential pick for the director of the FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation, and you might ask, like, what does FBI has to do with Ukraine? Like, they're not even part of this, like it's an internal. No. What essentially that guy said is that we need to investigate every single transaction that has been going to Ukraine and what it has been doing. Obviously, he was implying that there is some kind of blank check that Ukraine has been getting all this time, and that these transactions have not been monitored, which is absolutely false. There has been multiple bipartisan accounting commissions that came into Ukraine and traced where the equipment is going and where the equipment is coming from. And that guy, basically, in his speeches, he's been repeating a lot of the Russian propaganda points. So it's very clearly for me that he didn't pass bullshit test one bit. He's definitely essentially like a Tucker Carlson, let me just get into that Putin's underwear kind of guy. So even if FBI technically should not be looking into this, like if anyone would need to be looking into this, maybe Pentagon, but Pentagon has been doing this all this time. So yeah, that guy, like people say that guy will not work out, but I am not dismissing this. I just want to underscore that is why it's absolutely crucial to see who is going to be in Trump's cabinet picks and how they will get through. That is what I'm looking at, and that's what I am the most kind of wary about, because Keith Kellogg in relatively, like, on bullshit meter, how much we went from, like, who could have been doing this, be special envoy to Ukraine. I think Kit Kellogg on a bullshit meter kind of fell into, like, mediocre level bullshit, because a lot of his plans points that he wrote up was just fantasy, imaginary expectations from what Russia wants and what Russia really wants to do. It's a little bit of a silly statement, and takes a little bit of a position as like, oh, we need to respect this dictator over here, which I truly do not like, if not say even despise. All right. Man, my throat is just absolutely. Let's take this one by Adrian. So Adrian is saying, will Kim Jong-un continue to send more soldiers to Ukraine after hearing what is happening to the first wave of attacks by North Korean soldiers? Oh, absolutely. Like, this is not Kim Jong-un is not a democracy, okay? So he's sending people to Russia to basically die. He's selling them to die. Like, he do not care what will happen with them next. Like, let's be very, very clear about this. If you think otherwise, you might be convinced by the Keith Kellogg's plan. Let's put it this way. A pretty good question by Bart Lansing. What can Ukraine do to ruin the Russian economy? Best thing Ukraine can do is to negotiate with the Nordics and try to convince the Nordics that they will block the entryway for the ships, to the warm sea ships in Baltic Sea. That will be a huge hit on the Russian ability to sell oil, and oil is a big thing for Russia. We all know that. Beyond that, the second thing that I would consider as Ukraine is I would sell out to Trump everything that I could. Like, because we're talking about Ukraine kind of sustaining themselves and winning. Trump doesn't like China, and I think there has been good success of U.S. agencies imposing secondary sanctions on the Chinese and other countries' companies. I feel that Ukraine can do even more to sell out their land and resources to Trump and the American companies. Essentially say, like, if we win this war, then you will get all of the preferential treatment for developing these areas for resources and so on for like 50 years or something. And just ask him, just do not lift the sanctions and do not remove that department that is enforcing these sanctions on the Chinese companies, because that thing actually hurt for a lot of the people. Moreover, this is the path how European sanctions are also being imposed right now. So it's crucial that this thing stays up. So I think that those two things will definitely not allow Russian economy any kind of bounce back. Let's see. Have you seen any real evidence of North Korean fighting? So far, it's almost all social media and propaganda. I don't believe 11,000. Well, we saw the videos, whereas also see other videos from the drones where clearly very Asian looking, like, let's put it this way. I'm going to be the, what is it called, the racist here. It's like, so yeah, I'm going to be a racist and will say that I saw some of the drones blow the shit up of some of the Asian looking motherfuckers. So there we go. Clip that, racist Georgie, report, cancel. I mean, like, what haven't been canceling me? How are the weather conditions on the front? I have a picture. I will see if I can find the picture. Oh, I hope I saved it. Yeah. Oh my God, I am so good. Holy shit, I am good. Man. Wow, I actually saved the picture to about weather conditions. Wow. Okay, I literally impressed myself. There we go. Weather conditions. you wanted to see how the weather conditions are at the front line. I believe that's a striker, I want to say that's a striker, but I don't know. It's like, but yeah, weather conditions. Uh, t- t- I don't think it's a question. Please let your hair down. I just lost my long hair to chemotherapy and you should live it up. Slava Ukraini, and sorry about our recent elections. Don't worry, it's like it's fine. You elected what you elected. It's your fine, it's your country. I still support democracy, like because democracy is what I love. Democracy is what made my life, because if you didn't know, like I come from a dirt poor background, and when I'm saying dirt poor, I'm literally stating like rampaging through the garbage bins to find something to eat. And I was able to rise up, get higher education, finish one of the better universities of the world, get my life settled, get everything that I am right now thanks to democracy. So I am forever in debt, and that's why, despite the fact that results of democracy sometimes might not be to my liking, I fully and truly support democracy. I feel still that my case was strong. I feel still that Trump is a big threat to democracy, but if the country and majority of the country wanted that, I feel that while I might not agree with this, we must respect this because this was a democratic exercise. And it's not a perfect position. There's like plenty of holes in that position, but that is my modus operandi. Oh, oh. All right, let's go further. YouTube, you okay there, buddy? I don't know what's YouTube happening. It's like my Windows has been refreshing like 5 times. That's crazy. That was the question about Russian economy. We're doing actually quite well. How many North Koreans have been captured? Don't know. So it's unclear. Some of them were, but I cannot confirm how many. Let's see. This question. Why is Ukrainian YouTuber Dennis doesn't support his home country and talks only weakness or mistakes done by the military? Why? Well, like different people talk about different things. There's a lot of issues in how Ukraine is conducting this war, right? And there is a lot of critique to be had about like how this war is being run, how the company is being run. What for me tells me, like when a person gets like extremely critical, is that that person probably never worked in any kind of managerial position for any kind of large scale company. All of the people that have worked in any kind of corporation or any kind of a large company, and especially seen how managers struggle, how they're trying to do different projects, how changes in the companies fail and everything. For them, what is happening in Ukrainian military and how the war is run doesn't really get anyone surprised, because it's always a mess. It's disaster. You look into how any big company corporation is running, you're gonna pull your hair out just because how shit it is. It's ludicrous. So the problem of running a war like this is that costs people's lives. And it's very hard to look at it, especially when it's like your friends and family that are being there on the front lines. It's especially annoying when you see the same mistakes being repeated once again. But what we need to understand is that the war is not run by one side doing mistakes and the other side doesn't doing mistakes. No, the war is being essentially which side does less of a fuck ups, so to say. And if you've done a fuck up, how can you compensate for that fuck up? Can you compensate for that? So that's always messy, that's always dirty, and that's why war is always pain. War is pain, war is suffering, war is a disaster, and there is no good way. Like you say, like even if we say that Ukraine will win the war, that's not going to be a victory. That's going to be devastating. The amount of people dead, the internal overviews of what has been going on, the overview of how things has been done, how incompetent people were conducting incompetent things. And you're like, how did this ever happen? Who allowed this? But that is the price of a war. That is why war is really, really bad to be in. That's why European countries don't want to get into war. Because I can tell you one thing, if European countries suddenly find themselves in war situation, then the fact that we found out that half of our equipment storages didn't have working equipment, that's going to be the least of our worries. Like, that's what we need to say. Like, I as a person, I worked in these big corporations. I've seen the managements, I've seen the projects fall, I've seen the initiatives fail, I've seen absolutely incompetent people sitting in positions where they never should have been. But that's how it is. That's just how we imperfect are as humans. And the big problem is that it costs people's lives. And it's obviously a lot more painful for Ukrainians than it is for someone that is just supporting them like myself. All right. What? Okay, now Google just cut up like half of the questions. Perception is running a war. Dennis calls it like he sees it. War is not pretty. Yeah, exactly. War, like nothing in war is pretty. And as I said, like it's expecting that people will not mess up, expecting that there is going to be like all like grown-ups in the room every time, expecting that there are not going to be like some weird childish behaviors by certain people. It's like then you have no idea what you're talking about. And that's the unfortunate truth, especially when we're talking about 1 million people engaged into war. Martin, actually, this is a good kind of follow-up question. I'm just going to highlight it so you know what I'm answering, because Martin says, why it takes Ukraine so long to replace the ineffective generals? Because the system is the problem. Not just the generals, the system. And it's not about the people that got to be a generals, right? For example, like to put it in perspective, in Ukrainian system, it is still for generals, they can get penalized and they can get penalties if they lose certain amounts of equipment. There are certain written down penalties for the officer corps of Ukrainian armed forces. Up to this date, still, there is no penalty for the loss of human lives. So if subordinates of certain Ukrainian officers just die because he was incompetent, there is no penalty. There is only the penalty of the public opinion. And Ukrainians are very opinionated. So that's the problems of the system. And changes to this system are mandatory. They're necessary. And that's why Ukrainians are also so frustrated that the changes just do not come. And I cannot blame them. But I also realize just how hard it is to change the system. Any news on the collapse of the Russian railroad system? Not sure what you're talking about. I've seen some people hyping up that Russian railroad system is about to collapse. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? So no, I don't know. Dmitry Karlukov, what is the situation with artillery? I remember Armed Forces of Ukraine was matching the Russians during the 2023 offensive. Then we had the dip, but what about now? Are they gonna program from long-range term supply of shells? So the thing that you need to know, like there's only one number you kind of need to know to understand where we are with the artillery. So, okay, a couple points. So the first point is that North Korea has provided 5 times more ammunition than the European countries. European countries, including the Czech ammunition, has provided over 1 million shells, just over 1 million shells over the 2024. North Korea has supplied Russia with 5 million artillery shells. That is the first number that you need to know. The second number that you need to know is that the country that produces the most artillery weapons, the self-propelled artillery weapons in Europe right now, is Ukraine. It's the country that is being devastated and their factories are always being targeted. The country is producing the most weapons per month. They're self-propelled artillery weapons. It's 18, by the way. the number. So that is where we are. The scale is not there yet. Like, there have been a lot of talks that we're building these facilities, factories, and they're being built. Don't get me wrong. There are the additional investment, but the investment is always insufficient. It's like too little, too late. Always like too little, too late is a classic answer. Bad Boys Club podcast. This is why Trump will never be better. Just watch George, and I promise. Just see results, brother? Question mark. I guess it's a question. So, have you heard about hero woman called Witch from Bucha? Yes, I believe she was the mortar crew operator during the Battle for Bakhmut. Since then, she became the trainer. So she started training Ukrainian crews for fighting using mortars. And since then, I don't really know. I haven't seen where she ended up. Maybe she died. I don't know. Just me, what's the take on situation where it has come to an encirclement because Ukrainians pulled back too late, somehow south of Pakrovsk, I think. Yes, I can show you where it is. Yes, deep state. Let me switch, transition. Yes, there we go. So deep state. So this is Pakrovsk. This is the Kurakhove axis. And the best thing is, like, if I roll it back. So this area over here. So what people are talking about is that there have been forces defending this area in Yelizavetovka, Romanivka, Anivka, and then Russians kind of undercut these positions and they were able to attack Uspenivka. So Ukrainians supposedly started to pull out after that, and they exited through the gray area. And in a lot of Ukrainian perspectives, this is a bit too late. It wasn't a full encirclement. They still left through the kind of gray area. But I don't know. Like, this is the problem that we just do not know what was the problem here. Why was this area specifically held for so long time? Because we've seen the other areas have been withdrawn from the Ukrainian armed forces beforehand. So it's not completely clear why this area specifically was held. And I don't know that. However, do I personally think that this looks bad and it cost a lot more lives for Ukrainians? Yes. However, I again do not know the full situation. So, is the optics bad? Yes. Is it something that should have been done before? Yes. But I am not a general. I do not know the full picture. And I definitely knew that recently the commander of this direction has been replaced. So potentially these guys were just pulled out by the new guy. Potentially. Again, lack of information. But is it really bad? Is it look bad? Yeah, for sure. I mean, every death for me, every death of Ukrainian is bad. But I've listened to plenty of military personnel, and they said, like, it's always bad. Yes. Denis is a big fan of Butusov. Like, I'll show you. So, Butusov. So, Yuri Butusov. Yuri Butusov. So, this guy. Transition. So, you need to know about this guy. So, Yuri Butusov is a Ukrainian reporter. A very prominent Ukrainian reporter. He is very, very caring for what is happening in the military, but he is also a big fan of the Zelensky's political opponent. So he's basically, some people say he's either paid and so on, but he's very, very opinionated, extremely opinionated. You think I'm opinionated? You don't know shit. It's like this guy. And it's important, like, he's not just like a shill that's sitting in his studio. The guy actually goes to the front lines. He talks with the crews. He's been hit by many missiles and so on, drones and so on. He has been there on the front lines. So he always cares for the guys on the front. And he really despises the system. And what he also despises is Zelensky. He hates his guts to no end. He just absolutely despises Zelensky. Every time there is a problem anywhere, it's gonna be fault of Zelensky. So it's always hard with Yuri Butusov, right? You really need to buy into him to be kind of truly on his side. Because if you try to analyze the things that he's saying, it's always super muddy. So, for example, when he is talking about like the problems on the front line, he's always saying, "Oh my God, Zelensky, so bad. There is no weapons from the allies. Zelensky bad. There is Russian breakthrough on the front lines. It's Zelensky's fault. Why? Because he hasn't been to front lines. Zelensky starts going to the front lines. Well, he just goes to the front lines to take pictures with them. Because he's like such a shit, like he's so bad. It's our leader. He's bad because he goes to front lines, but he doesn't really reach front lines. He just reaches like some of the trenches. Zelensky goes to Avdiivka, literally like a couple of kilometers from the front line, speaks with like the frontline forces. Doesn't matter. Like it's still not good enough. Zelensky should have been there on the trenches when the aviation bombs. So he doesn't analyze what is the job of Zelensky. He doesn't analyze like whether it is Zelensky's job. Like for example, Zelensky in United States talking about getting more support for Ukraine. Zelensky bad because right now at the front lines things are happening. Zelensky goes to the front line to try to see how the forces are doing, talk with the real people. He's really terrible because we could really use right now the deliveries of new equipment and ammunition, and Zelensky missed some kind of a summit. That is the problem. So it's very hard to filter his narratives. Like a lot of things that he's talking about are correct. And here I come back to my previous points that there are always a lot of issues in the big organizations, including Ukrainian military. And the issue with that is that he's not just critical. He's like, this is like always, like he's like the clickbait, the talking man. He's like, this is not just the thing that is happening, that some of our group, like maybe some people, some units got into this semi-encirclement, and compared like to the whole 2000 front line, maybe it's not the worst thing ever. But for him, like it's like this is like the thing that decides the war right now, that Zelensky needs to resign because a couple of guys got really encircled. So he never kind of puts any agreement and never gives credit to Zelensky on a sense of like what has been achieved and how much Ukraine is defending and how much help for Ukraine is being spent by the European allies and how the global narratives are being built, like especially in Europe, in support of Ukraine. I'm pretty sure he also blames the election of Trump to Zelensky. That is the problem. That is the one of the views that a lot of Ukrainians are having. And again, as any warring country, they hate their politicians because everything is just so bad and people are dying and so on. This doesn't excuse that the Ukrainian army couldn't fight better. They should. They should be fighting better. And there's been plenty of Ukrainians coming out and stating how their army should be better and how they should be improving. Like Sternenko, Lachinov, guys from Azov, the 3rd Assault Brigade, Valery Markus just recently released a huge video, like 7 or 8 hours long video talking about how disastrous the Ukrainian counteroffensive was and how badly planned it was and how badly managed it was. There's plenty of these things. But it's like, it's like, yes, but also there are things that are happening. There are things that are being done. So I hope that's like, if you want to test, ask Dennis what good Zelensky has done. Like I haven't interacted. We're not really friends with Dennis. Like we never really talked a single time. But if he is indeed this from this band, which is like prevalent in Ukraine, then it's you can just ask, can you name me like good things that Zelensky has been doing? It would be a great test. All right, sorry for the long talk. Not much. Like, so the question is, Adrian's channel is asking how much an impact of will the Russian pullout from Syria affect the situation in Ukraine? Not that much. As I explained in my video, like, I think the first and foremost and the biggest thing is that the public reputation of a geopolitical player for Russia is ruined by this. That is the biggest things, because I still feel that Russia can find their ways around. There is Lebanon with I believe it was Hezbollah. I'm not that familiar with the region. Then there was Iran, that is still supportive of Russia. So Russian forces can still find ways to operate in the area. Syria was just very, very good. It was a puppet state. Well, not a puppet state, but like it was his puppet dictator that he could always, that he always could work around. But the reputational impact is massive, incredibly massive. I still think that potentially there could be like some kind of agreements, like the same opposition that are now in charge of Syria. They could like turn around and say, well, we need some kind of allies, and because we are Islamists, like the Western allies, the Western countries don't really want to work with us. Well, maybe we should start working with Russia instead. You know, despite the fact that Russians has been killing our people all this time. But that's the how do you say, that's the discussion of revolution, how yesterday's allies are becoming your enemies and how yesterday's enemies are suddenly becoming your allies. We've seen this movie played out many times, so I feel that might be like on specifically the bases aspects and so on, I feel there are things that could be worked out by Russia. But I really feel that the diplomatic aspect has been massive, and it's completely understated just how big it was. Let's see. Ghostos, while there are rumors about possible peace talks, could it also be possible that European countries are preparing for a direct attack for Russia? No, never. No. Europeans are not ready for war. We don't want war. No European country will enter the war willingly. I know there's a lot of memes about Poland willing to engage with Russia. That is false narratives. That is not what's happening. Poles are not living, dreaming how they can get into war with Russia. That is not true. With that said, the peace talks, we need to understand, like, a lot of people are really surprised that Zelensky is open for peace talks. And I'm like, have you been following this at all? Because Zelensky has been trying to initiate peace talks, some kind of negotiations for a while now. Zelensky always stated that there is like always the possibility for any kind of peace talks and diplomatic solutions to the conflict if there are security guarantees for Ukraine. But the best bet was to get Ukraine into strong position for these peace talks. He has been talking about this in countless interviews. That's why it's like really blowing my mind that people suddenly, oh my God, Zelensky wants to have some kind of discussion? If Ukraine is being allowed to join NATO, then suddenly Zelensky is okay discussing the return of territory by diplomatic means. And like, he's been saying this 2 years ago. And it's really hilarious. So the fact is that people are absolutely twisting and turning Zelensky's words, because it's coming from the interview that I already talked about on my channel. And in that interview, Zelensky stated we would be open to considering diplomatic negotiations for return of these territories if we would be accepted into NATO. But, and he stated that in an interview multiple times, but, I think I'm yelling a bit, but no one offered us that. So when people say that Zelensky is ready to give up some territory, they're just pulling words out of their butt. I'm sorry to say, because Zelensky said NATO first and then we go diplomatic route. But no one is offering him NATO. No one. Everyone is considering, it's like, okay, how can we screw Ukraine around a little bit and pressure Ukraine so they just give up territory to Russia? Because that's going to definitely work out. Yeah, so a lot of these peace talks are like, it's like people's fan fiction. They have nothing to do with reality. I've heard about real peace talks maybe one or two discussions. Everything else is just like fangirling about any kind of solution for war. The Dnieper River looks drier, yes, because the Russians blew up the dam. Kostosos, while there are rumors, okay, that's the question we ask. Let's see this. Sondre is asking, are there any other countries, regions similar to Syria that could be disrupted in order to harm Russia's power and presence in the world? And did the rebellion in Syria even matter for Ukraine? I talked about what it matters, and mostly it's been like impact. The biggest thing that should be disrupted is a Russian economic partnership with India and China. We need to put as much pressure on the Chinese and the Indians as is possible can. Okay, I need to highlight this because people here are still considering this war as a video game here. So John Williamson asks, why has Russian casualties dipped below 1,500 soldiers per day for the last week? This is not a video game, man. Okay? Like, the point of killed Russian soldiers is not a prescriptive amount. It's not something that everyone says like, hey, our point is like to have 1,500 dead Russians. No. Ukrainians are doing what they can to fight off Russians, and they need capabilities and resources to do so. If they are not able to kill the 1,500 soldiers per day, that means only one thing, that we, the allies that are supplying Ukraine with resources, are fucking up. We're not giving the resources that Ukraine needs to achieve those goals, because Russians are continuously attacking. Ukrainians struggling. Ukraine is having a hard time. It's fighting for its survival. It's not about 1,500 soldiers per day. It's not about that number. It's not about a fucking high score. It's about what kind of capabilities, how many lives of Ukrainians can be saved against this fucking onslaught. Not the worst question I've ever read, but it's pretty out there. Stop treating this as like a football game or like a football match or like some kind of video game. It's really bad. That's Dennis' question. We talked about that. Oh, that's an interesting one. It's a bit of a ranty one, but let's see. Just Forrest asks, hi Georgie, why are we afraid to win this war? It seems that we are our own worst enemies when it comes to supporting Ukraine. Exactly. I want to believe that this is because first and foremost, a lot of our politicians have been smelling their own farts for a long time. Secondly, is because we run a couple of aggressive wars ourselves during this time. You know, the war in Iran, the other parts, and we tried spreading democracy across the world to the places that were not ready for democracy, didn't want that. It wasn't part of their culture, or that's something that came out there, and we tried to do that, and it failed every time. And at some point, it feels that we learned a lesson that there always should be this halfway point, that we need to stop, that like we cannot go all in, because if we go all in, we just get bogged down and we never win, and we just spend resources in forever wars. So it feels that a lot of our political parties grew up on this peace at every cost. Like, we must return to peace because the state of war is bad. It requires a lot of resources that we could be spent on our own economies and so on. And it feels that the economic policies, the economic prosperity became more important than what we are achieving as a narrative one. Because we already won our biggest adversary. the Soviet Union. Nothing is threatening Europe. No of these wars that we have started has really impacted us in any way. It's impacted a lot of countries, our invasion into those countries, but it didn't really impact us. Yeah, maybe some of the, like maybe a couple of warriors died here and there. Like a couple of Latvians died, a couple of other countries' representatives. And that's where we were. It's like, let's just peace at all cost. And we twisted the ideas of never again after the Second World War. Instead of being never again, we will never again allow anyone from the position of strength to even consider starting the Second World War, to us basically begging on our knees to every single country around us to please do not fight wars. War's bad. We had peaceniks and pro-peace hippies taking over our countries, which is not the state where we're living in. Human civilization, world, does not operate on these niceties. We've created a false image of what the world looks like, and despite of all our calls for realpolitik, we've looked at everything through the rose-tinted glasses, like everything is just full of roses and butterflies. But instead, it turns out that outside of our peaceful boat right over here, on prosperity in Europe, we have basically dog-eat-dog kind of a scenario. And the problem is that because we thought that everything is just going to be good and fine, and if we're just going to find some kind of a middle point with these aggressive wolves that are just looking at our prosperity and want to tear us apart, then we're just going to feed them a little bit and they will let us leave us alone. And instead we end up feeding them so much that they have grown up and they're going after us. They're starting going after us. Right now they're just tearing apart our friends, tearing apart our partnerships, killing, destroying things that are contested. But don't get me wrong. Like, if we just allow it continue going further like this, then they're going to start tearing into us. And then we'll find out. So we have a reality check. Short answer. We needed a reality check. We got a reality check. We needed to smell our farts less and instead think about the world as not a nice place where everyone just wants peace and world prosperity. No, it's a place where people are exploiting other people to get something that they want. And they will exploit everything that they can to get what they want. If that includes killing you, they will do it. Cornelis Zanbergen. Oh man, Google again. Cornelis Zanbergen asks, always your videos, always there was AWOL pardon for deserters. Is it successful enough? What open info can you share about the recruitment of soldiers? Second, how the enemy doing the recruitment replacements? So many questions in this one, so I will answer them by time. Give me a second. My throat is just gonna die out. Maybe this stream will not be 2 hours. I'm sorry. Oh my god. So there was AWOL pardons for deserters. Yes. So in Ukrainian military, a lot of people went AWOL. So they left their positions, mostly because there is no real punishment for that. There is very, very poor prosecution of the AWOL soldiers. And essentially people just got sick and tired of the situation in the Ukrainian military, where they do not have sufficient resources, where they are getting assaulted by Russians daily, and where a lot of Ukrainian corruption are still running high. Ukrainian corruption is still a big thing. I know we're not really talking about this because the problem of Ukrainian corruption is that it's always being misused by and being red herringed by the pro-Russian sentiment. The sentiment that Russians are presenting usually goes, Ukraine is corrupt, therefore we do not have to help Ukraine, which is an absolute red herring, because it doesn't matter whether Ukraine is corrupt or not. it does not suddenly allow Russians to come in and kill, destroy civilians and people. We're fighting here for not the corrupt Ukraine. We're fighting here for principles, and we're fighting for the Ukraine to sometime, at some point, be free of that corruption. We're fighting for the future of people that are loving democracy and wants to support it. That's the important part. So there is still a lot of problems with that. And the issue with that is that a lot of, Ukraine isn't even that corrupt. That's true, Chris, by the way, because there's actually so much other corruption in a lot of our countries. Like, you look me in the eye and say that your country is not running by corrupt officials, I spit in your face. No, I was like, sorry, wrong ways. Like, it's too offensive. I spit in your general direction. That's as how it's gonna be. So it's that way, because Elon Musk has been pretty much shadow running the election campaigns. I've heard you have like some kind of rules for how much money can be donated to elections. Well, it doesn't really work like for billionaires, I guess. So let's not talk about corruption. The fact that we've created a lot of narratives of institutionalizing a lot of our corruption inside of our states doesn't suddenly mean that Ukraine is bad and we are good. No, corruption is just a prevalent thing that we need to fight through. And institutionalized corruption is unfortunately something that we are still trying to deal with somehow. Moreover, that's created a lot of narratives for Ukrainian soldiers to essentially fuck this shit, man. Like, I cannot hold it anymore. Like, our guys are incompetent, they're in charge, they're not being replaced. I'm just gonna go AWOL. And that's been quite a recurring narrative. Zelensky has been very reluctant on mobilizing people. In my personal opinion, and I want to underscore opinion, I feel that it might be a mistake because he's literally running people dry. Zelensky very against, for example, mobilizing women. This is something that I think is a mistake. I don't see why not. Like, I think it's very misogynic. Oh my god, misogynic. I'm really bad with these new words. So it's really bad. Like, it's really not treating women with respect, than stating that women cannot just join military on equal terms. I think it's silly. It is absolutely silly. I think we're long past that perspective that women supposedly are incapable and are the weaker gender. But Zelensky doesn't feel like this. Israel has been proven this. Women are completely on equal footing fighting in Israel. So I see no real problem with treating capable, like, and don't get me wrong, the training should be there, the education should be there, and the physical requirements should be there. So if a woman is not able to do the physical things that are required for the soldier, then obviously her not point to be in the military. And Zelensky has been very reluctant. He has been also very reluctant to allowing a lot of people coming in to rotate the people out. And again, there are some pros and cons for that, and I don't know which one, but I do feel that a lot of the soldiers on the front line have been taken for granted, and they're not appreciating that because they have been fighting this war nonstop for 3 years now. Zelensky did release some of the conscripts at the start of this year, but still it was just a small thing. Needs more women to have Ukrainian children. Don't get me wrong, that under 25 rules still exist, right? Well, which one are we talking about? Like, also, like, why are you looking at women as just the machines that produce children? Don't you need a man to produce a child as well? I just don't see women like this. I'm sorry. I don't see them as like lesser or incapable. I think the women that are strong are really fucking strong. Okay. Let's see. Oh my god, something really bad is happening with YouTube. Okay, I'm gonna skip some questions because like YouTube is really bad. There we go. Could Ukraine just change the lower draft age to 18 but still choose to only draft 25 and up? Seems like a semantic issue more than anything. There is no reason to. Ukraine hasn't drawn to its recruitment potential. Even above 25, there's plenty of recruitment potential. The problem is that even the Ukrainian militaries, when they are talking about, they say we do not need the youngsters. They say that the majority of people are older people, and they're usually the ones that are performing. And there are people. The problem is not that there are not people. The problem is how these people are used. There are a lot of systematic issues in Ukraine that needs to be resolved with Ukrainian military, and especially like how people are being utilized. And that question right now is being very, very heavily discussed in the Ukrainian military. And I'm hoping it's going to get resolved because it's been outstanding there for a while now. Ukraine has the people. They just need to utilize them a bit better. They need to find a way forward. Because right now, the way that they have been doing it so far is not working out anymore. They need a new approach. Georgie, those brigades that Zelensky said had no equipment, are those brigades finally getting some? Yes, but slowly. All right, this question thing is absolutely bugged for YouTube, so I'm just gonna read questions from the chat, guys. And my throat is killing me, so I'm gonna do this for 15 minutes more, and then we're gonna wrap it up. I'm sorry, it's a bit sick, but video is coming tomorrow for sure. Also, next week is gonna be my last week at my job, so I will be starting doing this full time. But obviously, a week after is gonna be like a Christmas week, so maybe on a Christmas week I will not release as many videos as I would hope for. So again, I'm gonna start the full-blown, like a proper full-time schedule workflow starting January 1st. So just some good news. And again, for everyone watching, guys, we're 2,500 here. Please consider supporting Ukraine. Like, if you like the content, if you like what I do, firstly, please subscribe. It really helps. It really helps with the YouTube algorithm, like if you're not subscribed. But otherwise, please consider donating to the campaign for Ukraine. It's very, very important because we're actually saving lives. One of the things that I think is underrated is how much we have achieved as a community. If you have some disposable income, please consider donating. This thing actually saves lives, like for real, for real. Even if it's like just $5, it's fine. Like just $5. It doesn't have to be more than a cup of coffee. Please feel better, Georgies. Well, when it's gonna be over? I need to close the questions. How do I close the questions? Oh, there we go. There we go. Found it. Okay, now we're gonna read through just the chat and let's just talk. So next week we're gonna have a stream with Rick the Ukrainian. If you don't know Rick, he's pretty good. He has been very, very supportive. He has been doing great job. So I'm gonna be very pleasant to have him over. I'm hoping I'm gonna go visit Starsky at some point. Plus I'm gonna be traveling maybe also to UK to visit Jonathan from Silicon Curtain. So we can we get a better presentation? We can collab. Better presentation for what? For what? Otsuku Cocker? What a name though. Might Crimea be vulnerable? In what sense? To strikes? Yes. To capture? Not yet, no. Rabid Zazeli. Georgie, what is stopping Macron from deploying if he's so enthusiastic? It almost seemed like Poland was preventing France and Britain from sending troops, but the media reporting has been weird. Yes, so how would I put it? The countries don't want to enter war, okay? Poland has been specifically saying that they will enter war on certain conditions, which are when Ukrainian capital essentially be threatened again. That's what Poland said. They said that they will potentially enter to secure it. I think that we're still having a little bit of a weakness in our legs, in our politicians. They're really afraid of war. Every politician is afraid of war, and I'm afraid that that we're not going to be seeing it for now. I think they still are looking up to US for guidance, and that's unfortunate. I was really hoping we're going to do more, but it's weird so far. So like it's a good argument to ask, like, hey Macron, if you're so brave, why don't you already send troops to Ukraine? But it's a question to Macron, not to me. Marino 4691, would you also do a stream with the channel Military and History, Torsten Henrik? He does English content, his main channel in Germany, and has 229,000 subs. You can reach some Germans. No, because we would not get along. Torsten is he's a lot more tolerant to Russians than I am. I've stopped. We talked with Torsten once, and I will not be seeing eye to eye to him because he, for example, is very much against of calling Russians orcs, which is for me is like a shit detector. You know, it's like, ooh, some Russian loving German over here. No offense. I think he's a good academic. I think he's a good for military analysis, but I don't think we're gonna see eye to eye. And especially if he's gonna try to excuse Russians and like pretend that they're acting like normal human beings here. I have no tolerance for that. Russians occupied the territory of people that did nothing wrong to them. Murdered, tortured, butchered them. And then have been killing civilians and targeting civilians for the rest of the last 3 years. My family was under occupation. Some of my relatives are still fighting. The kid that was growing up in part of my family, he survived by a miracle because the missile struck the neighboring entrance to the building. So the building that we're in, the missile just struck a little bit to the right, essentially. They were this close to kill part of my family. I have no sympathy for these fucking animals. You can say it's like, well, there may be like normal people, they maybe still recover, yes, but they're still not even fucking close to be towards that. Right now, they're invaders, they're occupiers, they're orcs. There is no excuse for that. Yes. Andrew Gordon, could the fall of Hezbollah be imminent due to the inability of resupply Iran road to Syria? Not an expert on the Middle East. Don't ask me a lot of Middle East questions. I obviously follow on the common level, but like going in such a depth, it's like, oh, will this political party coming out and topple and so on? Let's just very, very clearly state, Middle East is a boiling pot of absolute. It's like, how do I say it? It's war crime on war crime followed by another war crime. And whenever we're talking about who's going to get better, like I'm always asking, like, is that guy that dealt less war crimes than the other one? That place is like not something that I look out too much. I love democracy. I want to follow what we do as democracies, how we can grow. And I always go for, like, as democracies, we have a lot of issues that we need to solve to be better before we can start meddling and discussing what's happening in the Middle East. And the Middle East is a mess. And I am not ready to put any kind of evaluation and judgment. And especially not now. Before I started working with like Ukraine and support for Ukraine, I did my personal donation as just a common person. I was mostly donating to the people and escapees from North Korea. That's where I was kind of like where my interest lied. I really was interested in seeing the Kim regime fall. So it's ironic that they are now fighting against Ukraine. All right. Last couple of questions, guys. Very, very quick. You can ask anything. But didn't Macron mean to send to no soldiers in the peace zone because Europe won't give Putin anything. Not sure what this is for, but there are talks right now. Nothing has been engrained in stones for now. HTS is just fourth most bad. Wow. Yes. Great stuff. Did the surrounded troops get out? From what I've heard, yes, they have been pulling out. Did the North Korean soldiers shoot Kadyrovites? Yes, but it's unconfirmed. I am very skeptical always of a lot of these stories, you know, like it's very, like, first thing to understand, it's very common from friendly fire. On the war, especially the war that is like this, like messy and dirty and stupid, friendly fire is all over the place. Like it's every day, it's like tens of episodes, okay? So North Koreans having troubles communicating with Russians, yes, I believe that. The fact that they shot like a couple of cars with Kadyrovites could possibly be true. Could possibly be true. But in my book, it's not really, how do you say, like a notable occurrence. Okay, last question. Who's going to be the lucky guy or a girl? Mostly guy. I know most of you are guys. Thank you, by the way, for watching this. I appreciate it. Why would Putin stop if Trump vows to cut back on support? Let's finish up with this. Yes, that's exactly the silliness with the plan. Thank you so much, everyone that asked questions. I appreciate it. So why would Putin stop if Trump would cut off the supply to Ukraine? Yes, exactly. That was my point when we were talking about any kind of negotiated solution where supposedly there would be pressure on Ukraine to cut off military supply to Ukraine and then cut off on Russia, saying that you will be focusing on, you will be pressuring to supply more weapons to Ukraine. But then Putin, the only thing that Putin just needs to do is to start negotiations in bad faith, and then they are going to achieve their goals. Then Ukraine is going to get less weapons. So there is no reason for Putin to stop, because he's betting right now that he has more resources than Ukraine. So his only goal, and he showed himself that he doesn't really need anything. And it's very naive to expect that suddenly Putin wants to get out of this war, because so far, nothing has indicated this. Not a single statement stated that Putin would like to negotiate in good peace. All of our expectations that Russia is just going to take the territory and leave is absolute red herring. Watch the latest video by Anders Pak-Nielsen, the military analyst from Denmark. He talked about what are the Russian war goals. And there is like some people saying that they're going against, but I think he's pretty much on point. So Putin's goal is to subjugate Ukraine, whether by full occupation or by changing the government. So his goals, the only thing that he wants with negotiations is so he can reach that goal. He doesn't want any in-betweens. So he has zero interest in negotiations in good faith. He has zero interest about territory. The fact when there is like narrative stating that Russia is just going to get territory, I'm sorry, but you're living in a la-la land. That is not the case. So good question, but you kind of answered it yourself. And we're going to wrap it up with this. Thank you so much, guys, for watching this. I really appreciate your input. I'm sorry I cannot do more today. My throat is absolutely destroying me. I love you. Slava Ukraini. Support the Ukrainian armed forces. Trust the Ukrainian armed forces. And I'll see you next time.